Welcome y'all to the Blackhoof Saloon, a Wild West Exodus podcast. Mosey on up to the bar and get yourself a bottle of firewater or a glass of sarsaparilla and listen to some good old yarns about adventures of law dogs, outlaws, and weird creatures. So set a spell, water your ride or your rider, and get ready to tune up your posses. This is the Blackhoof Saloon.
Howdy all you drag riders out there, and welcome back to another episode of Blackhoof Saloon. This is Eric here, and I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Brian and Tom.
Hey.
Howdy.
All right, we're back again, and first off, let's start off. How you guys doing? What have you guys been doing in our current shape of the world, our lockdown, our quarantine? I don't see no zombies out there yet, so I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah, I thought that we were getting to be post-apocalyptic here or something, and instead it's just me staying at home, working, yelling at my kids a lot. So not quite as adventurous as TV would make it out to be.
Yeah. So you still have to do the homeschooling with the kids and work at the same time then?
Yes, and my brain has basically turned into mashed potatoes.
There's a reason why you forgot all that stuff many, many years ago, right?
Oh, my God. And so just so the listeners know, we were supposed to record 2 days ago, and Brian and Eric were sitting there waiting for me, and then the next day I was like, oh, crap. I know I asked an hour and a half beforehand, what time we were doing this, but I forgot. I didn't fall asleep. I just forgot an hour after I asked when we were doing it. So sorry about that.
It was so funny because Tom was like, hey, we're going to get this started. Let's get this done. And
yeah, they made a prior like,
have you heard him? I haven't seen him yet.
So your brain was literally just turned to mush from all the algebra and biology and.
I was still awake. I was playing PlayStation.
He was slacking. Is what he was doing.
It wasn't like I fell asleep. I just forgot an hour after asking when are we doing this. So yeah, that's kind of been what my month has been. There's just not much going on upstairs anymore.
Brian, you're like me, right? We're essential, so we're still going out into the wastelands.
Yeah, we're still essential. Still. Okay, so here in Houston, what was funny is the city, the county was like, okay, everyone who can stay home, and restaurants were all closed, and then then it was like they formalized it, like mandate. It was like, okay, well now we're really super serious, y'all. And here's a list of businesses that are essential. And that Monday, there were more cars on the road. So it's like, once they put the list out, people were like, well, crap, we're essential to.
Well,
I should never have not been at work last week.
I don't think that a lot of thought was put into the initial plans that happened, because things happened like here in Pennsylvania. They shut down all the truck stops. They said truck stops are not essentials, but truckers are essential.
Right, and then they had
to figure that one out. Truckers are all like, I gotta pee. So this is I gotta get gas and maybe a sandwich. So,
yeah.
That initial week, they begged everyone to stay home, so a lot more people stayed home that first 2 weeks. But then it was like, okay, this is going longer than 2 weeks. All these essential businesses need to go back to work, and then a lot more of the restaurants turned around and decided, okay, we're going to do to-go orders. Even though our business model isn't to-go orders, we're going to make it work. And so they sectioned off parking lots and tried to make it, safe for people to drive up, order, and then wait for their stuff.
They really didn't have a choice. I mean, when you look at the restaurant industry, if they didn't do that, they wouldn't exist anymore. They'd be out of business.
Yeah.
Right. So some of them are struggling still. That's why it's good that the political spectrum is now discussing, let's get back to work.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's there's 100 different opinions out there, and everyone's got this doctor, that doctor, epidemiologists, and they've all got different things. A study came out from Harvard just today that said we should be in quarantine until 2022. I'm like, you are freaking out of your mind.
We would never survive.
Post-apocalyptic wasteland. That would be it.
Yeah.
So
right. So I tend not to listen to any of the ones that are touted by certain news broadcasts.
Yep.
And I stick to like the obscure, scientists that they're not affiliated with any of the political guys. They're not. And I listen to those guys because those guys make sense. It's like the doctors that like post on their own saying, "Hey, I've got 800 patients, and I've been given this malaria medicine with the zinc, and they're recovering faster."
Yep.
It's technically still anecdotal, but it is actually working.
Well, and that's what I don't get. I mean, there's reports coming worldwide that countries are doing this and it's working, and we're sitting there like, no, we need human testing for the next 18 months. And you're like, oh, well, come on. Use your brains a little bit and say, hey, if another country has already figured this out, let's not reinvent the wheel. But
as the Trump bad man said it. Okay, we probably shouldn't get this political.
Yeah. Well, hey, how about we do this? Let's switch gears and go to something a little more fun and positive, and talk about our lockdown projects. So, I mean, it's a little harder for me and you, Brian. We're still kind of doing the same routine that we normally do every day. But, I mean, there's a lot of people out there using the opportunity, staying at home, to work on their projects that they've been putting off or catch up on, like a backlog of minis. I mean, I know you, Brian, have been painting more, even though you're still working. There's this one thing. More.
I don't have the things that were keeping me from my desk aren't a problem right now.
Not as many distractions.
Yeah, I'm getting a little time here and there to sit down and work on some stuff. So yeah, I finished one of Tom's models.
Yay!
She's done. The only thing left is to put on some clear coat, protection. But her base is done. After I hit her with the varnish, I'll be able to do the.
She looks great. I like the flat varnish, by the way. The matte.
And this is Brian's talking about Nakano. We'll have to post a picture of her or something up on the Facebook group, and so people can see it, because the colors you chose I thought were very interesting. That you basically went, you did some research, a little bit of looking up some reference material, and what'd you say you base it on, like Ming Dynasty?
So the leader, the emperor of the celestial, faction is Ming. He's really old.
The merciless?
But he's merciless. So the Ming Dynasty is still living, even right. So what I did was I researched the Ming Dynasty, and they had some pictures of different kimonos from that time period, and they had this, very almost turquoise green with some purples, and of course the Celestials' other colors that they tend to use with the rising sun theme is red and gold. So I kind of went with I picked up the turquoise, the purple, and the red and gold, and so her theme is those four colors. And unfortunately, not much of her is going to be matte, because
it's all armor,
silk, and all the armor is going to be glowing gold. So I'm not going to dull it. So yeah, she's not going to have very many dull parts.
You do you. I don't know anything.
Yeah, I'm just saying. The base is dull.
So in a way, Tom, your lockdown quarantine projects, you're living through Brian working on your minis, right?
Yeah. So interestingly, even though I'm working from home full time, I still have 3 kids at home.
Yeah.
And my wife actually was in an off limits quarantine for 2 weeks because she had something, and the doctors didn't know what. And she's like, "Well, should I get tested?" They're like, "No, we're not going to do that. So just isolate yourself." So I was kind of single dadding it for 2 weeks here with the 3 kids at home, and that's basically why I have basically everything stopped working in my head.
So you didn't break out every family's favorite game, Monopoly, and let them just duke it out for Park Place?
We've played a couple of things. We played Batman Villains Talisman. We've been playing Pokemon cards because my 8-year-old can play them. We've kind of just been going through and trying to play some different board games and stuff like that. But I'm in, family entertainment mode, I guess, for the most part. And by the time, I'm done with work, then I have to go and do a day's worth of school with my youngest daughter, and then cook dinner. And basically I've just gone to sleep. So I've had, very oddly, I've had less time since this has happened than before. So I've done nothing as far as hobbying, although I've probably played more board games and things like that than I've played in years and years.
Well, that's the one nice thing. You kind of there's a lot of families out there that hopefully are taking this opportunity to reconnect with their family through, board games or even the video games. You can sit together and play that stuff online. I know I've seen a lot of people doing a lot of stuff online, whether it's gaming or we've actually seen quite a few an uptick in like YouTube videos or just online content, streaming services and stuff like that, where people are getting together and doing online role playing. And I know some people were doing board games, and we were briefly talking about trying to set something up to do,
don't spoil it. We're still doing it.
We're still doing it? Okay.
Don't spoil it.
I'll leave it as a teaser. We're trying to do something online. But I mean, when this kind of first all started, I was just starting to do some more unboxings, and I got more motivated after they started closing stuff down to put some more videos up for people are stuck at home. What am I going to do? There's only so many times you can play Monopoly, or you need a break from doing the same monotonous things. So I did manage to get up 4 new videos on the YouTube channel. If you guys want to check those out and like and subscribe, hint hint. But so I've seen a lot more of that kind of stuff. Me personally, I've been watching a lot more of the content that's out there. So I guess that's what I've been doing. I've been using the opportunity to kind of just dive into more content that's becoming available out there.
I should probably take mute off. As you said all that stuff, and there's just silence.
No, that's all right. So anything else interesting out there that you guys saw on Dark Council? I mean, I've been seeing, like I said, a lot more content online, a lot more painting going on, I've noticed, Brian.
Yeah, there's some new people sharing their painting, which is always good.
Yeah, inspire people to work on their stuff. It looked
like the quarantine allowed people who hadn't jumped into the game jump in the game.
Yeah, you got time to actually
there are new
figure
people
it out.
Who said, I just picked this up, and there's definitely more people who hadn't had a chance to finish painting something and were able to get it started or finished during their quarantine.
Well, hopefully we do finish the quarantine up soon so we can get those game stores open again and people can start planning their events and game days and whatnot. I mean, I know I was supposed to, I had to cancel my last event before Adepticon, and then, of course, Adepticon got canceled, so we had no U.S. Masters tournament, and, you know, I know there were some other events planned there for all the players that were going to go, and so it's kind of a sad thing, but I'm looking forward to the stores to get open soon, so people can start getting out there, and like you said, people that are new to the game and are using the opportunity to kind of dive into it and explore it can manage to get out there and actually get it on the table and try it out.
Yeah. Some of the other interesting new things is since you mentioned Adepticon, the Adepticon model or the new promotional model is out in the public, and it's a Lost World Exodus exclusive.
Yep. Yeah, that was one of the things I was kind of disappointed in. No Adepticon, I missed out on getting it firsthand. So, but
for those of you who are listening, you probably already know, or maybe don't. They did extend that model on the store all the way through Adepticon to Gen Con.
Yep.
So between now and when Gen Con is supposed to be, if you know, we don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's still all up in the air.
Between now and then, that model is in the store. So,
because typically those exclusive models they do at the conventions every convention season is only available online during a certain convention. Yeah. That's cool that they're doing that.
But let's point out for everybody, though, even though it's in the store, it is being reprinted. That thing sold out really quick.
Yeah, it did really fast.
We haven't even said who it is, so...
we could save it for the news.
Let's talk about it now.
News.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot I did that jingle.
But, yeah, so Teddy Roosevelt is the Lost World Exodus model. And he's brings a friend to the table.
Yep. And we'll go more into detail of him.
Yeah, we can do that
when we get into all the other new releases we got in our news section. Well, I guess we're kind of rambling on. We can go ahead and get out of our little banter intro, and we'll dive into some of our segments here and go ahead and jump into our smoke wagon here. So stick around, guys. We got 2 epic bosses for you guys that we're going to pit against each other.
Go ahead, skin it. Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
Listen, mister, I'm getting awful tired of your...
I'm getting tired of your gas. Now jerk that pistol and go to work. I said throw down, boy.
All right, guys. In this Smoke-Wagon Showdown today, we're going to pit 2 epic bosses, like I mentioned earlier, against each other out in front of the saloon. And today, we're going to take a look at a boss from the Union and a rather, not really new, but a redo of a boss from the Enlightened. So we're going to look at... Oh, man. He's starting already. We're going to look at Custer and Kyle the Black today.
It's not really a redo.
He's like a rebox. Yeah, rebox.
He's relevant because he's the new posse box coming out next.
Yeah, so we figured we'd talk about him. It had nothing to do with him being enlightened. Really.
Sure. Brian, I think we can all agree probably right now you're going to be the tiebreaker.
Probably, yeah. Hey, you're the one that off recording was talking about Custer's sweet ass mustache that he has and his luscious locks.
Well, they're beautiful. I mean,
so you brought up the curly haired locks.
Yeah, I did, didn't I?
so even you have been brought in by the beauty.
Well, he does have
Custer.
He does have that special rule for the boys, but I'm getting ahead of myself here right now.
Hey, he's for everybody. He is for everybody.
So why don't we start with Armstrong Custer of the Union? God.
Let's.
So I'll start off. Armstrong Custer for the Union is let's go over a little bit of his card. He's a boss. He's a commander. We got that new keyword for Lost World. Union, human, male, brigadier, which I'm not sure what that exactly is. It's just a keyword, right?
That's going to be Lost World 1.
Okay.
Yeah, brigadier is a 1-star general.
Okay.
So he would be above the commander, I would assume.
So, and then general, or unless that's brigadier general, it kind of skips down the line. Okay.
It's a 2-worded term.
Okay.
Yep.
And then looking at his fortune, so he has a whole lot. He has 8 fortune. Is that the most in the game for a character? Is 8 fortune?
Yes.
Okay. So he's got a lot to work with, but there is a little pin in that. We'll get to that in a little bit. He cost 190, which isn't too bad for a boss. He's unique, of course. And then why don't we go ahead and go over his stats there, his little chamber there, Brian?
All right. So he's quickness of 5, mind of 6, got an aim of 6, a grit of 6, a fight of 7, and has a limit of 3.
Okay.
So he's, very typical speed on foot, has a pretty, above average mind, and his fight of 7 is really good, especially when we jump into his weapon options.
Yeah.
His 6 is also pretty good. It's nothing to laugh about. Once we get into his special rules, all of that will be subject to change.
All right, Tom, you want to start with what do we normally do? God,
Common rules.
Common rules. There we go. See, I knew you were up.
Common rules. No, I'm going first. You shut up. You do weapons next. The unit has the following common rules: metal, the quick of the dead, and target priority.
So
all right, I've done my part here.
So I think it's fair to note which most of your characters in the game that are bosses and faces have the ability, well, bosses anyway, have largesse. Custer does not have largesse that lets him share all that fortune. Now that's something that's unique to him. There's a couple other characters where they don't have that ability, but he's got that thing in his theme posse that one of the abilities is if you fill that posse out, then he picks up largesse, so he can share that crazy number of 8 fortune with his posse.
Right. So he's like really good solo.
Yeah.
But he won't help his troops if it's not a theme, if it's not the forlorn theme. So it's basically a way to balance that number.
Yeah.
Is like, 8 that he can only use. God, it really does limit, the model being able to use that much,
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways it kind of balances out. So especially if you decide to take Custer and load up with supports and vehicles, like a Rolling Thunder, where you're not going to be able to do that in his theme. So you're not going to be able to throw all that fortune into those heavy duty, options that the Union has.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely way of balancing it out.
He definitely becomes a sweet option for a second boss. As a solo, he can be quite strong, and we can go into why as we go through his special rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we jump into special, let's go ahead and do his weapons. So as I said, with a fight of 7, he's going to have to bring some kind of melee weapon. So we'll start with the Officer's Saber, which grants him a parry, and it crits to decapitate, range of 1 inch, so you can stretch it out, so it's a long sword. You got a pierce of 2 and a rate of attack of 1.
So that's fairly typical for a melee weapon.
Yeah, no, it's an Officer Saber. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, the parry's nice to have too.
Yeah, it's an often forgotten use. Definitely keep an eye on your melee options. If you have parry, you definitely want to use that in case you get, get into engagements. So now his ranged weapon is plasma 6-shooters. So he's carried 2 pistols. They have revolver fan, close work, and crit hazardous. Range 10 inches, pierce of -3, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And rate of attack of 3, which is also very nice.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, just having revolver fan as an option with those kind of stats for the rate of attack, he could be throwing a lot of dice at you.
Well, you also remember he's got 8 fortune.
Yeah.
So he's got no reason not to revolver fan every activation.
No.
So at least one of his aimed attacks coming at you is going to be 6 of those pierce 3 shots.
Yeah.
And throwing hazardous on you, which then becomes lethal because you're going to already carry it when he attacks you the second time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's very useful, and his overall combined abilities and stuff definitely make those weapons even better, once you start considering all the other things he can do. So why don't we go with special rules?
Okay.
So again, we talked about like his specials definitely make him even shine more. I mean, obviously the 8 fortune, you're already thinking, oh my God, this guy is so badass. It was like, well, just wait, there's more. His weapons are good. His stats are, aren't amazing, but they're decent. And now we get into why those decent stats actually get better once he's in the field. So he's got inspirational, which any friendly unit, except for this model, within 6 inches may reroll a single die during their activation. So huge ability. So yeah, he may not be able to give largesse, but friendly units are going to be able to take a free reroll, which is very useful.
Yeah, you just got to make sure that you kind of keep the rest of his posse units fairly close to him. That 6 inches, you could forget about it and get somebody outside of that little bubble to get that reroll.
Right. You basically, it's a little bubble around him. It's impossible for you to keep his entire posse around him. So you definitely have to, when you're thinking of tactics, you definitely want to remember that people can go near him to get that boon, right? Mm-hmm. So he can't walk around. He's not going to be able to walk around with 5 different units just hugging him like that.
Yeah.
Especially since when we get to some of the other abilities, there are going to be other units that got to be close to.
Yep. So his next one is Form Up on Me. So after both sides have deployed, this unit and a hands unit within 3 inches get the Trail Finder special rule. So that's a nice one. You get a little jump start at the start of the game to jump out on the board and, get closer to that objectives that are out there, whether it's, treasure hunter or stake a claim or any of those where you have to get to the board and secure a token. So I like that ability.
What I like it is it's not just him or not just the other unit. It's both.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a very useful tactic because then you're not leaving somebody out there on their own.
Well, interestingly, also with Form Up on Me, you are already within that range for inspirational. So right from the get-go, you've got some synergies there.
Yeah, definitely.
And some more. Can we go on to the next one?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll cover the next 2 together. We've got for the ladies and for the boys. They both work the same way. But for the ladies, any model in the unit may add +1 to their grit, fight, and mind if they are within 3 inches of a female human model, excluding models in this unit. And for the boys are the same, except if you're within 3 inches of a male human model. So you have Form Up on Me. You're within 3 inches of somebody. They are also within 6 inches for their inspirational reroll. And Custer is getting the +1 to any model in the unit gets +1 to their grit, fight, and mind if they're within 3 inches. So basically, Custer himself would get that +1 to those 3. So my question to you guys is, do for the ladies and for the boys stack?
Yes.
There we go. Look at him, boy. He's excited.
So yes. So Brian, you talk about all the fun things here and how good he becomes.
Right. And that's one of the things you have to remember. Now, the downside of that is the Union troops are male. There are no females, so they don't carry the female tag. And his forlorn posse is basically they're all male.
Yeah.
So there's no way for his posse to bring these females, right? Now, things to consider. Obviously, that doesn't exclude you from being able to bring another boss, right?
Yeah.
So as you build your posse, you take Custer, you fill him out, and you load him up, unlocking his largesse so he can use it, helping everybody out. You can bring Willa Shaw as a female, as the other boss.
First one.
Now you have that female, and you keep them nearby each other, and you're going to have that synergy where he's going to go +1 on grit, fight, and mind, right? So his fight's going to go up to an 8, his mind's going to be up at 7, and his grit's going to be a 7. Now, it's easy to have male models near him, right? And that triggers the for the boys. It stacks on there, bringing his mind up to 8, his fight, wait for it, 9, and his grit up to 8. So yes, definitely, if you can work it out, you tag team him with a female model and a male model. Now, here's another thing to consider. It doesn't say friendly model.
Oh, damn. Didn't think of that.
So when you are taking him into melee and you have to, and you outpace his models that grant him the boon, whoever he's hitting is going to give it to him.
Okay.
So that's another tactic.
Damn.
Think about it is, hey, yeah, don't need to always stick with your dudes. If you know, now I'm running into some combat, I'm going to pick up for the boys from the guy I'm hitting, or for the girls because I'm attacking a female model, because it doesn't matter whose side that model is.
So basically he's getting this bonus regardless of his own or an opponent's, because he's being a show-off.
Yes.
Basically. He's like, check this out, ladies.
Well, I think it's more in the lines like, remember when we were teasing about, you were like, oh, and he's got the best stash and his curly hair. It's more of it. He's just that distracting.
He's just so beautiful. He's so damn beautiful.
He's so distracting. He's so charismatic that people are they're just a little. They give him the advantage, basically, in the combat.
They're a little in awe of him.
Right. So, okay, so his last special, which, again, going back to all of his specials, just layer and layer.
Yeah, they do layer.
Is gambling. Now, when activated, this unit may discard the action card and draw a new action card from the deck. If it does so, the new card is applied immediately. The unit ignores their action limit for this activation. If the new card is equal to or lower than their original action card, then they receive the stunned condition, even if they may not usually be stunned, and their activation ends. So this is the same thing Doc has, Jesse James, so we've discussed it before. Huge ability, right? Especially when you also tactically make sure you have somebody in his posse or along in the force that could peek at your own cards.
Yeah, put them in a different order.
Tactical brilliance, allowing you to put them in the order that you like, or shrewd strategist, so you can just check it, right?
Yeah.
Get the top card. If it's a good one, keep it, especially if it's a 1. If you're about to activate your boss, right, or Custard, If you know it's a 1, then you know gambler's going to be a boon.
That's a no-brainer.
Right. But the thing to consider is when you do this and you succeed, he won't have a limit.
Yeah.
Yep. And he has 8 fortune.
And he has enough fortune to help him produce some results, right?
He'll get a lot done on that field.
Especially in concert with some adventure cards. That way, if you plan it well, he's going to do something pretty gross. Because his plasma 6-shooters, multiple shots, now potentially to have 4 or 5 shots off in an activation is just gross.
Yeah, he'll do some work.
Yep.
As he does one of these and, tosses his luscious locks around.
He tosses his locks. He strokes his beard. Oh, man.
You're enamored with him right now.
Oh, guys, if you remember the first posse I ever built on this podcast, this was it.
The other thing that we have to discuss, so let me pull up Custer's other posse, because Custer can also be taken as mounted.
That's right.
So when Custer is mounted, he has his own card, which adds mounted, iron horse, and machine to his traits. The fortune stays at 8. The cost goes to 230. So it's 40 points to mount him up on an iron horse. His quickness changes to 8, and his grit changes to 7.
So they all go up a little bit.
Well, it just basically the quickness and the grit typically are affected when you mount up. So, obviously the 8 is standard iron horse speed.
Yeah.
Grit 7 is just basically saying, okay, he was 6. He's getting a little boost because he's got some armor around him. He picks up Gatling guns. So that's special, brutal, and linked. 15-inch range, pierce 2, rate of attack of 4. Now, because he's driving an iron horse, he can only shoot his pistol 1 at a time. So his 6-shooter drops down to just a single shooter, and the rate of attack goes to 2. Did anyone else pull up this card?
Yeah.
I did not. Does he lose the quick and the dead? Like a lot of mounted characters do?
Yeah, all those mounted characters usually do lose that. He still has metal, but now he's picking up moving target. So as long as he moves that 7 inches, he gets that little bonus when somebody's shooting at him.
Right.
Let's see, special rules. Does he have anything different with special rules?
He picks up rapid, so he gets he can focus move actions for no additional costs. So
always great.
Those are the changes. Is he gets moving target and rapid.
Yeah.
But he gets the others. He does also get bulky.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of a new standard for those things.
You may not get in. You can't use get in move actions or portal move actions, and you can't be hunkered in cover or make climb checks.
Yep.
And he loses form up on me.
Yeah. And
mainly because he would outpace.
Yeah. He's moving around too fast. So just a couple it's a nice option for him.
Right. And the other reason it's a nice option is, one, he's known as a cavalry commander. So this is obviously a way for you to play him that way. And in the Union faction, the Iron Horse unit is a hands unit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So you can still take them. So when you can take him as a mounted posse in the Florin Hope, where you can bring, some of the hands units can be, trio of Iron Horses. So.
Yeah. This is the one you started with, Tom. How many Iron Horses you got now?
I've only got 6.
Got
7. Seven if you include Willa Shaw. So technically, I guess I have 7, and I'm gonna have to kit bash one to mount Custer on it. So I'm actually kind of hoping that they're going to put one out, so I don't have to kit bash one. Yeah, they've got it. If they're going to have a card for it eventually, they've got to put one out.
So just send me a custard, send me an Iron Horse, and I'll get back.
Will you just go ahead and pant him while you have him too? Why don't you just go ahead and do that?
So why don't we go over his theme posse then, the Forlorn Hope theme posse. So it's a union force instead of a faction posse, and Custer may take this theme posse if he wants to. If he takes this posse, he gains the largest common rule if all the slots are filled.
Wait.
Am I skipping?
You need to pause. He gets it automatically just bringing this posse.
Oh, just bringing the posse. Okay.
Yes.
He gets it for being in this posse. So it doesn't have to be, he gets something else
if he fills it. Okay.
Right. So just taking his theme versus a regular faction posse, just taking the theme grants him the largesse. Because you remember, his theme is pretty narrow focused.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he automatically gets the largesse. It's like, hey, that's the limitation, of he's not, basically he's at a disadvantage if he takes the other faction posse. Right?
The generic one.
So
okay.
It's basically unlocked if he sticks to his theme, which is lots of hands.
Lots of hands. So then if he fills all the slots with at least one unit in the posse, then all the units in the posse gain the Trail Finder special rule. And he is also the only boss unit permitted in that posse. That's pretty good ability. The whole posse gains Trail Finder.
Right. So the neatest part of that is it means you move up the entire block.
Yeah.
It's sort of like when you take him and he can do his little Trail Finder with Form Up on Me. So he in one unit can move up. Well, if you get 6 slots of hands in, then boom, you can have them all move up.
You're cutting that board down right away, right off the bat, man.
Well, and for the mounted guy, it actually, when you lost Form Up on Me, it doesn't matter now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a loss anymore, really.
And again, you're cutting that board down even faster because you're doing it at 8 inches instead of 5.
Yeah.
So again, we've already kind of hinted at it. The 6 slots are all the same. A union hands unit.
Yeah.
And they're all the same.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A union hands unit. All right, this is the new simple one. Forget conquistadors. Forget all that other stuff we talked about. He gets one thing: union hands unit.
Well, okay, so let's look at the union hand. So it's not as restrictive as you would think because there are a couple of things you can do.
You got some choices.
You have the Union Iron Horse Cavalry, right?
Yep.
Then you have Union Skirmishers, you have Union Riflemen, you have the Armored Guards, you have the Armored Riflemen, and you have Attack Dogs. So you can still have the variety because the Union has a healthy number of hands options. Like, the Golden Army, they only have 2.
Yeah.
Or 3 because they can do Attack Dogs, right? So they only have 3 options. The Order, they only have 1 hands option.
Yeah.
So, that's what one of the things is, he's kind of like his posse is very limited in what he can do, but he still does have flexibility, right? He could go mounted. He even if he doesn't go mounted, you can bring a couple of units of mounted.
Yeah.
Right. So it's then when you consider that mounted, the Iron Horse has the ability to grab different weapon options.
Yeah, that's true.
It opens it up a little more.
It's a variety that way. I mean, this posse is kind of a staple mark in my eyes of your typical Union, stereotypical Union posse. You have just numbers, a lot of just soldiers that your boss is, technically commanding. So it's very thematic in my eyes.
Right. So the biggest when you compare them to the other bosses in the Union options, it's very narrow in scope, right?
Yeah.
The other bosses are allowed to bring faces, right? They're allowed to bring some heroes in to support the hands that they kind of push in all of their things, because it's the Union, so soldiers are always a good thing to bring, except for Abe. That's one of the neat things about his is it's literally narrow focus. We're bringing hands. This is a huge troop posse, and when you consider other options to add to his posse, that's when you start bringing in the flexibility or bringing in some additional heavy hitters. So,
okay,
are we ready to jump into?
So that was Custer. So yeah, let's go ahead and we'll go into our second boss, Kyle the Black, who, a side note, has 2 different models in the game, but they basically work the same. So you could either use his regular Enlightened model or his Christmas model that he has.
You should always use the Christmas model. I don't even think that there should be a question about it.
You like the ornaments hanging from his beard?
I do. I have strong feelings about that. I love his dog.
Oh yeah, the dog is a great addition to that model.
That is the best dog in the game. So, you know me, I generally am very anti-Enlightened, but that is a great dog.
All right, Kyle the Black. So he is coming out soon. He is a boss, Enlightened, human, male, and he is tainted. So he's one of your tainted models that you'll have to do a taint check, if you remember, something I always forget to do when I play Enlightened. He has 6 fortune, which is not quite 8 like Custer, but it's still pretty high.
Yep.
He costs 180, and he is also unique. So let's see, his chamber, Brian, what do we got to start with? Man, he's slow.
All right. Yeah, if you paid attention to what Kyle the Black looks like, he's a bit of a chunker.
He's a big boy.
He's huge. And really, he is, the girth of him is more like Kingpin girth, more than the Blob, right? So he's just a big guy. With a quick of 4, it kind of tells you he's not running across the battle. He has a mind of 6, an aim of 4, a grit of 7, and a fight of 6, and brings it all in with a limit of 3.
Yeah, he's got high grit, but man, that's the quick. That's so frustrating for me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's so, and the aim of 4 is kind of funny. He doesn't have any range options anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So he's got 3 different melee options. He's got servo claws, have brutal, and then special, and crit to lethal, range of 1 inch, -2 pierce, and rate of attack of 2.
Yeah, the brutal's nice to have on there.
Brutal's nice to have. The special's not so nice to have. Does limit how many times you can use it, but Grammy River. Oh well.
Wow, I think I already know which way Brian's going.
That's a 1.09 add when they started adding special to these weapons. So yeah, so he has 2 other options that are pretty good. The meat cleaver is basically his follow-up weapon. So with the limit of 3, the first time you're going to hit, you're going to use several claws. The second time you hit, if you're still in range, or if you're able to, you'll swing over to the meat cleaver. They have a crit of brutal, base to base range, pierce -2, and the rate of attack is 2. Again, he's pretty quick with the meat cleaver, right?
Yeah.
With the rate of attack of 2 on the meat cleaver, that's just as brutal as the servo claws, and picking up brutal, no pun intended, on a crit is pretty good. So the last weapon he carries is the Mortician's Blade, which if you look at his model, he's got 3 of them stuck on his chest. So wicked little blades. So they have parry, decapitate on a crit, base to base range, pierce 2, rate of attack of 1. So he's got a couple of different options.
Yeah.
The Mortician's Blade gives him the ability to parry, which is nice.
Yeah, it's nice for. He's a melee guy. Yeah, he's going to get in your face to attack you.
Right.
All right, so common rules for Kyle. Tommy?
His common rules are metal, target priority, and durable. Notice he also lacks largesse.
Yeah. So no largesse for him.
And he lacks quick in the dead.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Well, I think we already established he's not quick.
Right. But he did pick up durable. He's not dodging out of the way, but he can take a little more.
He's more or less saying, bring it.
All right, so special rules. Okay, so you want to take that first one since you're of the...
My favorite thing for Enlightened, Carpathogen. So this ability costs 1 fortune chip and may be used by this unit once per turn when a construct face, hands, or support unit within 6 inches is destroyed. So before the taint checks are made, D5 of the models from the destroyed unit are returned to the play area within 3 inches of Kyle. Any model that cannot be placed is removed from play. The new unit counts as having activated for that turn and gains the reanimated rule. This cannot be used against units that are removed from play due to yeller checks. So, big thing here. This is one of those, I know it's confusing for some people, but it's the reanimated rule. If you bring back units this way, they become reanimated. You got to pick one or the other type of thing with them. Either you're going to try and reanimate them, or you're going to do a taint check. You can't do both.
Right.
And I know there was confusion over that for quite a while, and you know it's just you got 2 choices basically. Is you just got to remember, and you got to make sure that they're close enough to him that he can do that. But with that fortune, you know, he's got a lot of fortune, so he should be able to do that, no problem. Especially since he can't share it.
Yeah, but he can only do it once a turn, so.
Yeah.
So the fortune really doesn't help there much. What does give him, it gives him the ability to, re-roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you don't like the D5 you roll.
That's
the
true.
Fortune can help get a re-roll.
That is true.
And there are some other things. So his next special is Death Dealer. When this unit is engaged, each successful hit caused by this unit on an enemy unit they are engaged with causes a further automatic hit on that unit. Automatic hits like these, and from qualities like Brutal, cannot generate further hits from the Death Dealer rule. So, remember, he's got the Servo Claws that give him Brutal and rate of attack of 2. Basically, if he lands both of his ROAs, they generate their own Death Dealer successful hits.
That's right.
Each one of those 2 ROAs gets another. So it becomes 2, becomes 4. Then you add the 1 from Brutal. Brutal doesn't trigger another one.
Yeah, Brutal's just once. So he could, just because of Death Dealer, that's a lot of hits all suddenly. To go from 2 to 5.
Right.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then that's also probably why the Servo Claws picked up special.
Yeah.
Because Death Dealer is a multiplier for him when he's in hand-to-hand. So it definitely, it's a bit gross.
Yeah. I mean, Meat Cleaver's pretty much just as bad as if you get the crit. If you get a crit where you're getting a Brutal still.
Well, I don't know. I still think even without the crit,
it's still pretty bad.
It's a really good follow-up.
Yeah.
To hitting with the Servo Claws. If you can't, get the crit, it's still 4 hits.
Yeah.
If you hit both. And he's got the fortune to re-roll. So, he has a good chance of getting at least 1 or 2 of those hits on. And, with the multiplier, it's very effective. So, Tom, you got the next one?
Meat Shields. It's reaction. When this unit fails a grit check, you can pick a friendly model within 3 inches of this unit to fail their grit check instead, as they are pulled in front at the last minute, ignorantly sacrificing themselves in the process. Models affected by Meat Shields cannot benefit from the Sawbones special rule.
And this is kind of his a big part of his theme is just, yeah, he's like, he sacrifices his dudes around him.
Right. Hopefully minions, but you never know.
He don't care.
Yeah, Harmony Ratchet nearby. He pulls her in. She can go disordered.
Oh, man. All right, so he's got 2 more left. He's got one of our favorite ones, Brian, Treasure Hunter. This unit adds +1 to the number of adventure cards in a player's hand. Should this unit be destroyed, the bonus is lost at the end of the resolution phase. This ability does not stack, so multiple Treasure Hunter skills in a force still only get +1 to their hand size in total. I love this ability. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I mean, we both have our favorite guys that have it. So the fact that he has it, again, helps him out, gives him another shot each round, and getting a card that can help his constructs trigger a victory point.
Yep.
Or help fuel him to get them to do what he needs to do. So definitely a good add for him. His last special rule, Hardy, allows him to re-roll failed grit checks. So again, doesn't have Quick in the Dead, but with durable and the ability to re-roll grit checks. And
then meat shields on top of it.
And then meat shield.
He's pretty durable on the field.
Yeah, so he's going to be harder to get off the board than initially looking at him, you think. So
right. So, we'll get to that, the matchup, after we talk about his posse. That's got probably one of the coolest names for a posse. It is the Meat Grinder theme posse. And again, that posse box comes out next month or this month, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. And the box set is 15 construct hands.
Yeah.
And Kyle the Black.
And then Kyle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basic. There's some basic stuff there, but that's a lot of guys.
Yeah. So the Meat Grinder theme posse is an Enlightened force instead of a faction posse. Kyle may take this theme posse. Kyle gains the largesse common rule, very similar to Custard.
Yeah.
You got a lot of fortune, can't use it on your own, but if you take your own theme, you get the largesse and you can share it. If all 6 slots are filled with 1 or more units in the posse, then all units in the posse gain durable.
Okay, so everybody can get durable like him.
Similar to the way Custer's theme works, if all 6 cylinders are full with at least a unit, then all his units gain durable. Just a great defensive boon.
Yeah.
So his cylinders are not as generic. They have a little bit of fun you can do when you get to the 5th and 6th slot. So we got slot 1 is up to 2 Enlightened construct units. And literally 2, 3, and 4 are also the same. So, he has a much easier time of building a huge and versatile, posse because of the way he's able to bring separated units, right? So he can bring multiple, 3 to 6 teams, right? And so they can obviously move around the board a little more. And then his 5th slot, an Enlightened construct unit and or a unit with the creation rule. So big change in those terms, right? You can bring an Enlightened construct unit and or a creation unit, right? So now he's able to bring in some of the big guns like the creation 5, creation 10, creation 13, and everyone's favorite 2 heads better than 1, creation 7. So,
7.
That gives him that ability to anchor his posse with a big guy, right? The 6th slot is an Enlightened construct unit and or a unit with the creation rule. So again, tail end, right? Either stick some constructs or bring constructs and a big fleshy monster beast. So definitely pick your points correctly, you're going to get some nice little ads at the end, and they'll pick up durable if they don't already have it. A lot of the creations already do. So
yeah, those big guys, those creation guys, usually have the durable. But this is going to be a posse where you do a lot of number crunching. I think you're going to want you're going to want to get to the end there to get those two big nasty guys that will be scary on the field. But in the same sense, you got to go through all those other slots first with all the little scrubs, and so you're going to be crunching numbers. This posse is like the basic. It could be the basic horde posse. I mean, you could just flood the board with lots and lots of guys.
Right.
Which, with Kyle, it's kind of what he wants. He wants to have all those guys that will let him use his abilities of, they go down, he can bring them back. He can have them float around him to basically take shots for him. So he can, slowly move up the field.
I see his posse is standing against the other Enlightened bosses, and obviously, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, since you play it more than I do. Kyle's posse is the I don't care about my constructs posse.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Because he can only revive once a turn.
Yeah.
Right. So he's very much the flip side from Custer, known for just churning out bodies and throwing them away to accomplish a goal, because that's basically how Kyle's doing it. He's like, I'm marching all these undead out in front, and it doesn't matter if they get wasted.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have any other resources. He can only hope to survive one per turn, right?
Yeah.
So when other themes in the faction enable you to then bring in additional faces and resources that also pick up Carpathian, thus multiplying your ability to save more of your troops, right? Because he has to be within 6 inches of the dying unit, which again, he's got so many units spread out on the board, he's not going to be able to be there for everybody, right?
Yeah.
You basically have, more than likely, you pick up the idea that he stays with the two creations, and then he's going to reserve those Carpathians for when one of those creations go down.
Yeah.
I mean, am I right?
Yeah.
That's how I would play it, is I'd have Kyle and Creation 7 be a tag team melee.
Yeah. I mean, 7 is, he's just as fast as him, so they wouldn't outpace each other.
Right.
And then with, 7's abilities to kind of mitigate your card draws and stuff like that, that'll help. And then he's a scary beast that will, draw a lot of fire, that Kyle can do his abilities to bring those guys back when they drop. Yeah, you don't, if you take him and do like another boss that's going to bring in those more faces and units that he can have, you just have to be careful that they don't get too far out in front of him and away from him. Like, I thought about in the past bringing Cam with his flying. I'm always about, flyers are great because you can advance up that board so much faster, especially for Enlightened. But in that same sense, they're going to outpace him, and he's not going to be able to help out whoever, Cam or his buddies. So you just have to be careful with who you pick and choose to work with him.
Yeah. So let's do the versus these two bosses head to head.
I don't even think there's a contest. Custer's way better.
Well, that's because you like his hair and his mustache.
All right, now so I'll give some reasoning though. Kyle is fat and slow,
man,
and he has no ranged attack. So I'm just sitting back and kiting the fat bastard. He's gonna be like, "Come here and fight me." I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna shoot you. I'm just gonna keep walking backwards and shoot you." And that's before even getting onto an iron horse and ripping you up with a Gatling gun. So I don't even think there's a contest. If it's a one-on-one, I don't ever have to engage because you can't catch me. So basically, I'm gonna just shoot you. And yeah, you're tough as hell, but I have all that fortune. I've got the revolver fan. Sooner or later, you're rolling a 1, and you're done. So
yeah,
so I just think
you also have to remember he's hitting him with those plasma things, putting hazard on it. So all those grit checks become lethal. Well, what happens when you are being forced to re-roll your successful grit checks? You can't use your you won't be able to use Hardy as your protection. You lost it because you're being forced because you got all these lethal hits coming at you because you got hazard on you already. So I think Kyle is a melee beast. I think there's a lot of situations where he's really good, but one-on-one with anyone who has range, he just can't engage.
Yeah, he's going to be outpaced pretty much the whole time, and he's going to be dependent on who is with him. Like you're saying, Tom, because they can just basically, nah, you can't catch me type of thing.
Yep. So I mean, let me just find a mic around here so I can drop it.
Well, again, one-on-one, yeah, you're right. That's going to be a very difficult thing for Kyle to get into melee range. And then even if he gets close enough with all that extra fortune, before he even gets that first servo shot, Custer's going to be able to, veteran instinct, blast him in the face. That's going to be difficult to survive.
Yep.
So I do believe in head-to-head,
one-on-one,
Custer will more than it's just a lot of averages. There's very few percentage chances for Kyle to pull out in that.
I give this to Custer 19 times out of 20.
Right.
I mean, yeah, maybe as a player I do something stupid.
Well, some of it could be, you can attribute card draw dice rolls to it all.
Sure.
I mean, Custer isn't that much faster on foot than him, but just the fact, like you said, Tom, is that having that range capability. He's throwing a lot of heat at Kyle before he can even get close to do any of his nasty stuff.
Right. He doesn't get to play, basically. One-on-one, Kyle just doesn't get to play.
I mean, he's very defensible, but how defensible? How long can his luck hold up before he rolls that one whiff? That's just like, he's got metal. That's it.
I think the only way that Kyle even really has a chance is if Custer decides to use Gambler and ends up getting stunned.
Yeah.
And that's the only situation. And if you know that, you go, I'm just never going to gamble. I mean, I've got a sure thing otherwise. But some people like to live on the edge. Some people like to go for that. I'm going to attack you 5 times this turn type of a thing. And I'm one of those types of people. So I like to
okay, even if not without Gambler, he's got the potential with his blasters to do the revolver fan for the first shot, right?
Yep.
And so that's 6
times the rate of attack, right?
Yeah, it goes to 6 shots.
So isn't that 18? So my question is, how does revolver fan interact with the rate of attack? Does he get
doubles it?
It just doubles it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So it goes from 3 to 6.
Okay.
Then his next, shot or attack is going to be another 3.
Yeah.
Right, and then he is a limit of 3. So if he didn't have to move, then again it picks up another 3. So it's 12 pierce 3 shots in his face, all of which you have hazard, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is the biggest risk in the interaction, right?
And he gets those awesome boons from being by, ladies and boys.
Again, it's head to head.
Head to head.
One-on-one.
He can bring in 3 inches within 3 inches of Kyle, and he picks up the boom.
Well, yeah. If Kyle does get too close, then he's getting it.
So Custer picks up just for being 3 inches from Kyle. But again, he probably wouldn't want to do that, knowing Kyle can walk 4 inches. But
yeah,
I do think that volume of fire is hard to survive. So.
Yeah, I think most games that are dice rollers, it's always beneficial. More dice, your odds are going to be better.
Yep.
Right.
And just the fact that Kyle's not getting to that point for some time. So
yep. So that's the one-on-one.
Posse versus posse.
Posse versus posse is a little more interesting.
Things get way more interesting. So let's just go with unmounted Custer. So on foot. The downside is Custer has the ability to bring in some pretty big guns.
Yeah. I mean, both these posses are centered around bringing a lot of dudes, a lot of hand units.
Yep.
So it's going to be both are going to be a numbers game thing.
Right. It's going to be depending on how they decided to focus their hand choices, right?
Yeah.
The key on with the Enlightened one is it's any of the constructs, right?
Yeah.
So that's where his flexibility is going to be is where are the other constructs, right? So obviously the 4 hands options, the Abomination Seekers, the Widowers, the Menials, and the Henchmen are considered constructs, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about some of the other ones? What other constructs are there? So the Hellion hands unit that hasn't released yet is also considered a construct. The Monocav.
Yeah, it's a good option right there.
He's able to bring in, and even though it's a support unit, his restrictions of construct units doesn't designate whether it can be support or hands. So he's able to bring vehicles as well. So they both of those posses have the options to bring in vehicles. The iron horses are also considered constructs. So the Enlightened iron horses.
Yeah, the Ulons.
So Kyle's not mounting up, but he can bring some mounted units. The brutes are also constructs, so you can bring in some of those brutes.
And that's a good option with their weapon choices with the flamethrower, to have that template weapon.
Form the brute squad.
The brute squad.
and also you can bring some phonic blaster menials if you want.
Or here's a fun one: the big nasty snake. That's a construct.
So you got a lot of options.
Yeah, he's got a lot of options for all those different slots in his posse.
It's yucko.
Yucko.
So that's where Kyle kind of brings it a little more into a better fight, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because he has the ability to not only bring 2 of the good creations, but he's got various options as
with the constructs.
Bringing in contracts. So
how expensive are his hands options? I mean, I look at some of the these posses, and it actually seems like you run out of points before you run out of slots.
Yeah.
So
they're 10 per model.
Yeah, they're cheap, and then
each unit has to have at least 5 in it. So they start at 50, and
the other guys are 20.
They get between 5 and 20. So I mean, obviously, if you're going heavy henchmen, you are going to be able to bring quite a few.
Yeah.
And like the Widowers and the Seekers, or obviously you want to, if you're going to bring some of them, they're a little faster. So, they're a little more expensive. So they're 20, and they go from 3 to 10.
Yeah, those guys, well, the Widowers are on the medium-sized base. So you got to kind of think about that when it comes to spacing and stuff like that. Those guys, though, are kind of my go-to unit. when it comes to taking hands with the Enlightened. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive, but they do a little bit more for you.
Right. Yeah, that's the way the most of the hands work. The real cheap ones are, they're shields.
They're
You
filler.
throw those out
Oh,
front.
yeah.
I mean, even taking a 10 model unit.
I think they shoot worse than stormtroopers.
Right, but it's a law average. If you have 20 of them and you're throwing 20 dice,
yeah, you're gonna get some are gonna hit.
Like we said before, that one's gonna sneak in and ruin someone's day. So the model calves are price point at $660 per model, and you can bring them 1 to 3. So that brings in that kind of a filler if you wanted some heavy firepower. Their iron horses are $55. Obviously, if you wanted to upgrade into some of the different weapons, you're going to spend more. But Gatlins are at 55 points per.
Yeah.
Brutal linked, rate of attack of 4.
Yeah, Gatling guns are pretty much, I think, the gold standard in this game.
Yeah.
They really do seem to be much better than your other options on most heavy units that can take special weapon type things.
Yeah, I mean, granted, their aim is 4, but having the linked really helps. You get that second shot of hitting with the reroll.
And again, when you can't reroll rerolls, it's useful because it takes away if you do succeed on a linked reroll, the opponent you're shooting can't use their defensive rerolls.
Yeah.
Like if they have shrouded, you're ignoring it because they can't force you to reroll. But some good things. Obviously, the brutes are a good option to bring some heavier firepower. They're 50 per. And then the snake, obviously, is the most expensive option for bringing in units. They come by themselves.
It's a big giant snake.
115. But, again, they draw a pretty good amount of,
heat
based on what they can do.
Yeah.
So I find this to be a tougher decision on what to do. So my limited experience, such as it is with bikes, is they are great glass cannons.
Yeah.
They die just as easy as pretty much everything else in this game.
Yeah.
So if you load up, I conceptually I love the idea of having just a heavy cavalry type force for the Union. And you could load up with tons of Gatling guns and everything. You could really rip through a lot of hands. But there's so many hands that you're going to take fire back, and those bikes are going down. And you're just not going to have that many of them because of the cost. So that concerns me. And then otherwise you're just going to your line troops, and you're just kind of matching off head to head with those line troops. And the Union doesn't get that choice to really bring all those varied types of units. They're a little more limited in what they can bring. Yeah, they can attach, the missile launcher guy or the Gatling gun guy to those units, but that's one guy in a unit. So I find it a little more concerning when you look at the whole posse as opposed to the one-on-one matchup. Discuss.
No, I agree. It's not as clear as the head-to-head bosses, because this gets into I think the balance of Wild West Texas as a game. It could go either way. Between these two posses. I mean, the reason we picked these two to discuss is because this is a true, to the last unit head-to-head. This is a meat grinder versus massive forlorn throw them all in to die posse, because it will probably play out that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically you've got the meat grinder and you've got the meat.
It's going to be a high attrition battlefield, and the key is, again, it's going to end up being what superstar actions can occur, right? Obviously, if bad rolls Custer's gonna go down. I've played Custer and it's like lost him in the first turn. You know, and obviously if that happens, you're toast, and there's not much you're going to be able to do, especially against Meat Grinder. If you lose Custer too soon, you're not gonna be able to auto correct against Kyle, right?
Yeah,
because he's just going to be at that point, you know, with his options depending on how things work out. But I think it's very even, and it makes it a little more of I think, a fun. Right? Can you imagine? You know, this would be a very
these two posses would be literally a knockdown, drag out fight of who's going to be the last man standing.
Right, and then it would come to the scenario.
Yep.
You know, which style of units is going to be better at securing the various different scenario points. Yep. Obviously, with Kyle the Black picking up Treasure Hunter, he has that one extra card to secure victory points, which could very well be the tiebreaker of the match.
Yeah.
The ability to secure those extra victory points.
I mean, it's great that the Union has that option for speed with all the iron horses, but what good is speed to get out there, get those objective points, and then you're just sitting there like, you know, a shooting target, or not shooting target, but you're just sitting there waiting for that horde to get to you and then just start chewing into you.
Right. Even more than that, the board is only so big. You have a horde taking up half that board. How much is that speed helping?
Whether
you?
It's your own or
well, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You're like where are you going to go with that speed without many guys? What you're at that point, you're just really looking at, you know, what special weapons do you have mounted? How well can the Union clear out all those constructs before they start? You know, their effectiveness starts getting chewed away, you know, through attrition. I think that there's a little bit of a technology versus numbers that skews towards the Union wants to hit first. They have to hit first. If they don't hit first, they're going to get overrun, in my opinion. I don't think that they will hold up as well as the constructs, because the constructs, you have different things going on with them, because Kyle can bring them back. Mm-hmm. They can, you know, I think you said that you have to make your choice between tainted rolls and the Carpathogen roll. But the fact of the matter is, even as you're killing these things, some number of them are going to be coming back.
Still coming, yeah.
And where with the Union, as they lose guys, they're just gone. I mean, it's so. I think in a true, straight up attrition battle, I don't think the Union wins that as often as the Enlightened would win that. Because of that, I think that the Union has to try to skew towards things like bikes, where they can put on flamers, where they can put on rockets, where they can put on, you know, Gatling guns, and try to get out there and get that first hit in, and try to thin the numbers out
right away
to try to skew it back to their advantage. Because if they don't do, the way I see it, if they don't do that up front, then it's just a matter of time before they get overrun and destroyed.
Yeah. All right, so let's go over our picks. So, 1-on-1, I think I know where you stand, Tom.
Well, it's Custer, obviously.
Custer.
Yeah, Custer.
This pains me to say, but I think I'm going to have to go with Custer. 1-on-1, it hurts. But if we go posse, I think Kyle is majority of the time with his posse and the choices he has. I think he's going to take it.
Oh,
majority of the times.
If you want to say majority of the times being 51%, 49%, I might side with you there.
I could go with that.
Lot more. You have a lot more options with the Enlightened than with the Union.
Yeah,
and as Brian said, a lot is going to come down to the scenario. And with that treasure hunter ability, there's a little bit of an advantage as far as the ability to generate victory points, having that extra card.
Yeah.
That I can't bring in a pure Custer posse. Frankly, I view the Custer posse almost as a secondary posse to some other posse that you're bringing. I think it does a nice job of one, bringing Custer, who's very strong, and then just filling out some troops and stuff. But
yeah.
I don't love it as the primary posse. I actually think that there's a lot of weaknesses there. Conceptually, I think it's awesome. I love the idea of, just having this, whole mounted cavalry unit. But I think the realities of the game are that unit will get torn apart by a lot of things because you just don't have that many of them. I think when we had tried to build this out, you ended up with maybe 12 bikes, 12 iron horses, and that's just not a lot. That's not a lot. It sounds like a lot, and it can do a lot of damage, but they will start going down very quickly.
Yeah,
the combat effectiveness of the posse as a whole will degrade, I think, faster than the Enlightened one will. So I might have to give the Enlightened a slight edge.
Man, I see the pain
in the posse. In the posse fight. Luckily, showdowns are 1-on-1.
All right, well, I'm going to go against the grain, and I'm going to say it all matters on how it's built, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with these two posses is there's so much flexibility with Kyle's and with, bringing all the, like you said, the extra weapons, the full hands units, the ability to go head to head for those two posses literally is going to come down to what options a player is going to be bringing, right? So I think it's more even than not.
Yeah.
So it's all going to come down to the way the game is actually being played. So I actually am going to go 50-50.
Oh, man.
Coward, make it.
It's not really a coward thing. It's just there's no way to do that because there's
a lot of variables with both these posses.
Yes,
right, and the design
could skew it.
Do exactly that. They are so balanced when they go head to head that it depends on what choices were made. Like, so if we said it was just strictly hands versus hands, so like Kyle could only bring his hand options, and Custer can only bring his hand options.
I think that's clearly Union.
That's a Custer one.
Absolutely.
Right? When you go with the ability for Kyle to literally load up on a lot of his heavier hitting support options, that's what gives him the ability to then overpower the pure hands posse of Custer's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Realism, if you had to build with what you own, and I bring what I own with Custer, I'll probably beat you because you probably don't have enough of the support options. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because I don't own any Enlightened.
But that's the point. Is like, so in actual practice, that's why it's more of a 50-50 because I don't think, we can min-max a hard-to-beat Kyle meat grinder, right? But when you level out for points, that's how it's going to have, how Kyle's going to have to beat the Union. Really, the Union it's going to be standard, right? You'll probably bring at least one of the 6, or maybe 2 of the 6 slots with iron horses. The rest are all going to be various hands, whether or not you bring a couple of the armored hands and a couple of the regular hands just so you can, put more people in them because they're cheaper. It's very static. I mean, there's not a whole lot of variations right there, right? With Kyle, that all the variety is there, but it all costs various different.
Yep. You don't know what they're bringing.
Right. So it could go any way.
Well, that's why I said I would say 51% to 49% because
Yeah.
the advantage that I give to, like I said, the advantage that I give to the Enlightened is that they have that extra card, so they have an extra opportunity to gain victory points. So that's why I skew it very slightly in their favor.
Okay. So, well, we are definitely going to have to take this one to the polls then and see what the community says. And hopefully they don't just pick their favorites, but think about what we kind of discussed here and weigh the options. And maybe we'll see some comments about just from experience, of people playing these on the board. And in relation to our last poll, so our last showdown, we pitted the Ghostbuster against the big old spirit, Raven Spirit, Warwick Hudson and Raven Spirit. And from what it looks like is everybody is siding with Ernie on that showdown. So Warwick got the most votes with that one. 12-9 is what he got. So
oh, that's not that big.
It's not too big. Yeah, it's just a little bit. And I don't know if that has anything to do with just he's kind of the new hotness, the Lost World posse. Yeah, that's where Warwick stands, and we'll have to go ahead and do a poll for Kyle and Custer and see what people think about that one.
Yeah, we may have to set this one up someday and duke it out, see how it goes.
And just have a like we said, a knockdown, drag out fight.
I think it might have to happen one day.
You know what? I could see this happening. So we're going to be about 3 feet from the table, throwing dice on the table, just yelling and hollering and hooting. But you know what?
We're going to have a second table for dice because we're going to need so many friggin' dice.
Just to catch them, yeah. Like Brian said, this definitely would be a fun matchup because they are so even. So,
this would be the kind of matchup where I would almost each player would have an assistant just to help move the models because it's going to be a long one.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and get out of the smoke wagon for this episode. Make sure you guys look for the poll on our Facebook page, and I usually share it in the Dark Council too, so you guys can vote on it. And we'll go ahead and move into the next one here.
Alrighty, Wild West Exodusers, we are now jumping back into some rules. After a few months, we've kind of talked about rules, but not one of our official rules segments. So today we're going to talk about dice and all the rules that dice interact with. So we're going to start with, hey, what kind of dice does Wild West Exodus use?
So, yeah, we're going to talk about dice and talk about things that sometimes are overlooked or forgot about. And Wild West Exodus uses one of my favorites. I like 10-sided dice, Brian.
I do too. I really enjoyed every time because it's a surprise when that's the dice you're going to be using. So I was always intrigued by it. And so, so it's a D10 is the nickname that it's common used in all the different games.
For all you gamers out there, or non-gamers, right, I should say.
So it's one, it gives you more variety in the rolls, right?
Yeah.
So especially if you're, that way you can do a little more balancing with the myriad of different, models, right? Because on a D6, man, there's not much spread there, right?
Yeah. Your chances of being successful are less.
Right. So 10 also gives the game a really couple of unique features as well. And of course, partly because it's a D10, there are times where you do what's called a D5, which is you roll a D10 and you divide by 2, round up, gives you the result. One of the things that's used for is when your Enlightened guys are being...
When I get to bring them back.
You got to roll a D5, right? So you roll and then you divide by 2 and round up, and it gives you how many models step back up from the power being actually working. So those are simple things about the dice. One of my most favoriteest thing about D10 in Wild West Exodus is when you're doing a blast, right?
Okay.
So when you use the blast, there's something called scatter.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
And Wild West Exodus has a very neat way of determining the direction of scatter, right? Some games you roll a dice and you look at a chart, and the chart tells you what number corresponds to what direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's clunky, right? So I thought it was ingenious that they just decided, no, roll the D10 near the model where this is going to land, and the pointy.
It's such a simple concept.
Is an arrow of the direction this is going to scatter to from the target location.
And
right?
then it's also the number that you rolled, so that's how many inches. So
yeah.
I mean, it's such a simple concept.
Elegant in the way it was, and it's neat, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that with a D6.
Right? No.
There's no arrow, so you can't. But with the D10, it unlocks this really neat, elegant way of helping with something that happens in the game where it's not going to make you jump into a book. Yeah,
and it keeps like you just said, you don't have to jump in the book, so it keeps the flow of the game quick and moving where, you don't have to put on pause and get pulled out of the game, the story you're telling.
Right. So those are some of the things. What else do dice? Obviously, the big one everyone knows is you can't re-roll a re-roll, right?
Yep.
And some of the tricks of that is, so say some of the powers that our models may have could cause a re-roll, right? So like I shoot you, if you have shrouded, it makes me re-roll my successful hit attack on you.
Yeah.
Right? Well, if I miss my original shot and I use fortune to re-roll, now I do not have to re-roll based on your shrouded because I've already re-rolled, and you can't re-roll. You can't force a re-roll of the same roll.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that also works both ways with like fatal. If you fail the check of my shot and you're like, oh, crud, I'm going to have to use fortune to try to save him, and then you pass, my fatal shot doesn't cause you to fatal.
And it kind of works
doesn't make you
in your favor in the sense for linked also. Like if you roll and you miss a whole bunch of them, well, you can re-roll those ones you missed, and then your opponent can't force you to re-roll those ones you just did.
Right.
So yeah, that's a neat thing, and I think we have to bring up the whole mechanic they have in the dice with the critical misses and the critical hits, which usually bring some kind of effect in the game.
Right. So, yeah. So one critical success.
That's the one you want.
Right. That's the one you want. That's the one you're searching for, right? And they use a symbol on the dice. So if you have Wild West Exodus dice, the number 10 is the WX symbol, right? And that is the symbol for crit. So if you crit, obviously you can't make someone re-roll a crit.
Yep, that's kind of the main thing right there. You can't force somebody to re-roll that. But then also they give you some kind of added bonus depending on the character's weapon, right?
Right. So when you look at the card under the weapon slots, you'll see the little W and X symbol. And if you roll those symbols on the dice, that effect goes into effect.
Yeah, and that could be like brutal, or it could be stunned. Yeah, a lot of the conditions usually.
So those trigger when you roll a critical, and
then the other end was the
don't have it.
Yeah, you just got a 10.
Yeah, and you can't be forced to reroll it.
Yeah. Now the other end is the 1, the critical miss.
Right. So if you look at the D10 that Wallace Exodus has.
It's
There's also
appropriate.
not a 1 on it.
It's appropriate symbol, isn't it?
Right. It's a skull snake.
Whoops.
So when making a check, a roll of 1 before modifiers is always considered a failure regardless of any bonuses. No unit, common, or special rule, ability, or effect can force a critical failure to be re-rolled.
Yeah.
Furthermore, rolling a critical fail may trigger some additional effects on some weapons or rules, which would clearly stated in the weapon profile or under special rule. So it's just basically saying, hey, you missed, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. It is a common way for you to lose some of your favorite models on the board.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is the auto-fail of a grit check.
That's what? That's basically the equivalent of him shooting himself in the foot, right? Trying to pull the gun out of his holster.
Or that random blast from that hands unit going through the visor of your heavily armored tank, and he gets shot in the forehead and he crashes and the whole thing blows up. Okay.
He pulled a Luke Skywalker, in other words.
Okay. Just like them womp rats down in the canyon.
So those were kind of the basics. Were there any more basics with the dice themselves?
Right. So, it's D10 to succeed in the type of actions that you're going to make. You're rolling the dice to do a success. Well, to find out if your roll is successful, you're looking for a target number.
Yep.
And that number is
It's 10. Always going to be 10. Yeah. That's
so
easy.
You're always trying to hit 10, and that lets you know that you've succeeded.
Yeah.
Right? So you roll the dice and add the stat that goes with the type of action that you're performing. Right? And then there's a couple of reasons that you're rolling that have no corresponding, so it's just a flat roll you're trying to do. And so those are the times that you wouldn't have a stat to add. But for the most part, like if you're going to shoot someone, you're going to be adding aim, right?
Yep.
To see if you succeed. But shoot actions have other things that affect the roll as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into that, right? So we're going to go do the shoot first, and then we'll go to the melee. And then so it's basically a refresher and a reminder of all the things that you're supposed to.
The modifiers, dice modifiers, basically, is what we're going to look at.
Right. Add or subtract to the dice rolls, and your goal is always going to be 10. Right?
And some of these are things that you may want to do purposely to basically increase your percentage, your positive chances of getting that 10 that we're talking about rolling.
Right.
So how about we go over positives? It's like positive things you would maybe look at wanting to do to up your chances.
Right. So if you're going to be shooting, obviously always start with your aim.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that's the first positive modifier to the roll would be the character's aim. So let's just go with, Doc. He's got an aim of 8, and that's where we're going to start, right?
Okay.
So already got a +8, trying to get to 10. So what other positive modifiers could we add to that?
Well, the first thing that I think of is that hand of adventure cards you have, where you have the guts. So you're going to look at guts on those cards that give you maybe, usually it's like a +1, right? So you'd look for a +1 to aim. So you can buff up your aim. All suddenly, to get to that 10 is a little bit easier now. It's a pretty easy one, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. If it's in your hand and you're really wanting to not miss, you play that card before you roll, and boom, you got a +1. And those work for the entire turn.
Yeah.
Which is good, because the next way to add isn't quite as lengthy of a boon, right? So say that +1's not enough. So what else can you do? You could focus. If you focus the action, you get to +2 to the type of action. So it's shoot action, so you get +2 to the aim. So now the 8 becomes a 10 and a +1 from the grit card. the +1 grant from
you could combine them.
The depth card, and now we're at 11.
Yeah.
So we have +11 to the roll, and we have to hit 10. Now, you would think, hey, we are there. There's no way he's going to miss.
Yeah, yeah.
But what do we have to now account for?
So now there's the negative modifiers.
The negative modifiers. So the way the negative modifiers go, the first one that comes into play is long range. So is your target beyond 12 inches? If it is, it's -1.
Yep, that's an easy automatic. He's far away. Maybe he can't see so good because they didn't have good eye doctors back then in the Wild West.
Well, you're lining a shot. It's a little harder to do.
Maybe it's a windy day. Yeah, it's harder to do.
And obviously there are special abilities that ignore long range. Mm-hmm. So that would be a
like
boon.
Frank James.
Exactly.
He's a sharpshooter, so he can ignore stuff like that.
Right. He's got long shot. It allows him to ignore the long range. So the next thing is targeting someone who's engaged in combat. If you're shooting in and you're trying to support one of your models who's in hand-to-hand with, Ghost Wolf.
Yeah.
He needs help, right? So, but it's a risky shot. But Doc has he's got plus 11 to the roll.
Yeah.
So he's going to subtract 4 from the aim.
So that's a penalty or shooting into a crowd, trying to pinpoint that target.
Right. So -4 to the aim if that initial target is engaged. The penalty does not include any additional obscure penalties caused by models blocking line of sight to the target engaged in combat. Furthermore, if a critical failure is rolled when making the shot, the hit is instead resolved against the closest model to the initial target within 3 inches. There's no other model within 3 inches. The shot simply misses, but there is a chance of models your opponent chooses, which is hit. Okay, so there's a risk.
That's a risk that has bit me in the butt many times.
Remember we talked about critical failures? Critical failure can trigger something else. Well, this is one of those examples. So if you are shooting into an engaged target, there's a possibility if you do roll that 1, you're shooting your buddy in the back.
Yeah.
So,
oops.
Right. So remember, it said this doesn't. The -4 is just for the engaged combat. You still have to account for what they mentioned as obscure penalty. So that's the next penalty. Yep. So here's what obscure means: suffer a -1 to your aim attribute for each. For each.
That's one that a lot of people forget.
Each model or terrain feature directly between the shooter and the target.
Yep.
So that's where some people skim, depending on how they want to fly loose or get specific. But for instance, if you're shooting into combat and your buddy who's engaged to it is between you and the target, so he's a -1 penalty for the obstruction.
Yep, there's one right there.
That model counts. So it makes it another minus, right? For instance, Doc is shooting in. That one model is an oops. It's a minus. So that's another minus. So we were at 11 -4. That's at 7. Now we're at 6.
Yep. It knocks it down pretty darn quick.
Now, let's just say there's a bush between you and the engaged model. That's another minus. Now we're at 5. Okay? And that's where you're going to have to make your roll.
Yeah.
So it's very important, especially when you can move before shooting. So you can maybe line up, maybe move to the side so you can clear
the obstruction,
or run up to the obstruction, because then now if it's base to base with you, it's not considered for obstruction because you're now adjacent to it.
Yeah.
So you're over it. So those are some of the things to consider when you're looking at your.
Kind of think of it this way. A nice idea to do is to actually get down there, eye level, and kind of try to see what your model that's shooting is seeing. So then you get an idea, well, he's at that more or less street level. well, he's got this bush, he's got this tree, this fence, you know, whatever's kind of in his line of sight, like you said, if you can move first to clear some of that out of your way, that's a good practice to do.
What you do is you take your base size from the shooter and you run parallel lines from both sides of his base.
Yep, a
To your
corridor.
target. Anything that obstructs that line
Yeah,
is an obstruction.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be completely in the way. It just has to intersect those lines.
yeah,
And it's considered an obstruction.
and it's enough.
And that's enough to cause the -1.
Yep, yep,
Or everything in between. Now, say you're like Mac. And what does Mac love doing? He makes this huge
oh yeah,
terrain extravaganza, and he puts the little pebbles and dirt and little kind of things all over your board. Are we talking about those things? Well, maybe. Depends on that first conversation you and your opponent have, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about terrain. Hey, what counts as terrain versus just the aesthetic that we put on
exactly,
this board, right?
exactly.
So, you know, you have a tumbleweed just for flavor might not be considered an actual obstruction. So you would say those things in the beginning. It was like, hey, yeah, these pebbles don't count.
Yeah,
You know, these crates do. This fence does. This tree does. We've got this lake template in the middle of the board. Does not cause an obstruction because it's flat and,
yeah,
you know, it wouldn't interfere for shooting, right? So you got to decide those things, right?
yeah. Because you don't want to try and decide those in the heat of the moment, because then, you know, it may benefit one player versus the other one. You kind of want to have that stuff predetermined.
And once you went one way, stay that way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Be consistent. But so that's the ballpark. You know, what's neat about it is really a simple system. There's not a whole lot of modifiers.
Yeah,
Right. We have a couple on the positive side. We have a couple on the negative side. Special abilities obviously are going to be on your model's card, and that would also give you the heads up if there's going to be something else that would affect
yeah,
the roll
yeah.
of the die.
Now, we were talking about shooting, so these things kind of apply the same way to melee too, right? It's just they're maybe a little bit different. You don't have to worry about the long distance, obviously, with melee.
There's a little different ones. But before we jump to that, let's go ahead and take time to retouch on masked fire.
Okay.
Masked fire is a rule that was designed to speed up me using 10 hands
Yeah.
and all of them shooting. Because in the old way, before we had masked fire, each model had to draw line of sight. Each model had to calculate obstructions, and then they all rolled. Well, the obstructions could be different.
Yeah.
So as you're rolling all 10 of these dice, it slowed everything down. So mass fire specifically was designed. So you pick one model, you use his obstruction,
Yep.
right? Everything else is the same. All the models have to be in line of sight. All the models have to be in range.
Yep.
But one guy is the one who's calculating the obstructions. It speeds it up, right? Can you think? I've got a 10 model hands unit, 10 different rolls. It could be 10 different
Calculations, yeah.
Right. So no, we're not doing that. That takes too long. It slows it down. But now I got to go do is pick one guy. He's got line of sight. I'm going to pick the one of the 10 who's got the least amount of obstructions, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, hey, it's going to be little Johnny on the end because he's only got one obstruction versus these others got 2, 3, some maybe even more. And then boom, it's just one calculation. You roll all the dice at the same time, and you do the grit checks at the end. Right?
Which is fun to shake a whole handful of dice and just throw them out. Bam.
But that's the reason we got mass fire. It was to speed up using hands because a lot of people weren't using them because it's like, oh, this is a skirmish game. I don't want to use all these hands. It takes forever to roll them. Well, now there's a way we sped it up, right? And of course, mass melee is the same way.
Yeah. Now here's a question for you and for the listeners. Now, say you have in that hands unit a guy with a special weapons issue. That's going to be a separate.
It's done separate, right?
Right. Okay.
Right. And say, okay, so because you're allowed to do special weapons based on an ability, right? Experienced or specialist or those type of things. It gives you the ability to, as you reach different milestones in the building of that unit, you can pick up one or maybe a second one if you fill it out completely.
Yeah.
If you do, and the 2 heavy weapon guys you add to the unit have the same special weapon, mass fire would trigger for them, and they would be a second mass fire in that unit.
In the same unit, yeah.
All the other guys would go, then the 2 Gatlins would mass fire together. So one would calculate the obstructions, the second one would just add the rate of fire.
In a way, it's like you got to think about it. It's like, what are the weapons in this group? Just group that up. Kind of think of it that way. Okay.
So, strike. So we go with the strike. Obviously, D10, you're still looking for the target of 10 or higher.
Yep.
Instead of using the aim, you're going to be using fight.
Yep.
So let's just say we're gonna go with Jedrick Powell. He's going to use his stun batons. He's got to fight a 6. So, or 6 or 7. It'd be nice.
Here we go.
Okay, so my desk is a mess. Okay, so say you got to fight a 6. That's your starting point. And same as the shoot, there's a glory card.
Yep.
With the guts modifier of plus to fight.
Yep.
So if you have that card in your hand and you want to make sure you give yourself a little extra boost, you play that, and now for the entire activation, he's going to have a +1 to his fight.
Yep. So some of these are kind of the same thing. You can still play the cards.
Yep.
What else did we say? Focus. You can still focus, whether it's through an action point or fortune chip. You know, one of his fortunes that he has. And then, of course, abilities. So these are all kind of the same thing that can modify it. Now, is there anything different, though? Like anything that would be a negative being a melee? Because, I mean, we don't have the whole intervening terrain and cover to worry about.
So, obstruction is not one of the modifiers for melee. It's just not one of the ones listed. And, of course, it's assuming that most combat is happening base to base, or in the rare event, you have someone who has a longer range with their melee weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking maybe an inch. It's very hard to get terrain into that gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does have its own negative modifier, and it's called hunkered. A unit that has the hunkered condition receives a -1 penalty to the strike actions. So if you are hunkered, say your first attack you hit, but they used veteran instincts and hit you, and you quicken the dead because you didn't want to get hurt, so you end up being hunkered. Well, now you're hunkered in the middle of your action.
Yeah.
And instead of, walking it off using some of your fortune immediately because it's your activation, which you can do, is immediately walk it off and get back up.
Yeah.
But maybe you don't want to waste that fortune. You can suffer this -1 from being hunkered while attacking.
Yeah.
It just means that you're defensive, but still attacking. You're just not as good. So it's a -1.
Basically, it's like because hunkered is like you're ducking down, taking a knee or ducking. So it's kind of like you're still down in that, that hunched over type of position. So
it could be prone. It really is a cinematic way to describe the various things that would put you at a disadvantage in combat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or an advantage, because being hunkered is also an advantage on the defensive side.
Yeah. 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 It would only be like a negative for you if, like you said, you're the one that's doing the strike.
Right.
Okay. I think that's all I can think of for fighting.
Yeah, we covered them.
I don't think there's anything else, right?
There are some like effects that change your dice rolls, but it usually works through the attributes, right? So like all the conditions can affect you. attributes in different way, which then overall would lower your dice rolls.
Okay.
But I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it, Brian. I mean, this is just like a little kind of short, kind of refresher look at the whole dice mechanics and dice modifiers that, well, like, you know, we talked about intervening terrain. It's something that sometimes, because you're in the heat of the moment, you forget to take account each piece that's in the way, including, you know, guys. I mean, that's one that gets forgot about a lot. And then the positives. I mean, I don't know how many times I have cards in my hand and I set them down because I'm focused on reading a stat card. And then after you do the action, it's like, oh, man, I had a +1 for what I just did. So, I mean, this was just, we wanted to kind of just give it a kind of a little bit of an in-depth look, just to, you know, for new players to think about this stuff when they're playing, and just a reminder for even, you know, veteran players that I think a good, like, if I was going to, like, give a hint or a suggestion to somebody, is just to slow down. You know, think about it, because they're not, it's not hard calculations. It's just sometimes you forget that you have these options.
Right. So one of the other things, obviously, I just dawned as we were discussing, that the modifiers for the defensive side of attacks.
Oh, yeah.
So we could talk about those. So obviously, if you get hit, you have to roll a grit check to see what the outcome of that hit was. Some special abilities actually trigger on hit, but the most of them trigger on the failure of the grit check.
Yeah.
So what kind of modifiers are we looking at for trying to survive a hit?
Well, we mentioned hunkered as being one positive for you to survive.
Right. So if you're hunkered, you gain +1 to your grit attribute because you're harder to hit.
Yep.
You're being defensive, and that gives you that bonus, right? Another positive add to your grit check would be obscure. You receive a +1 to your grit attribute for each piece of terrain or unit that the line of sight from the enemy crosses. So, obviously, when you're calculating because you're shooting, that is the same number of subtractions that your target gets on top plus to his grit.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you manage to hit him after, you know, you're counting those against your aim, well, then he gets to count it for his grit check.
Right. And a lot of people, this is another sometimes forgotten boon for who you're shooting.
Yeah.
So definitely something to remember. Try not to forget. You get +1 per obstruction all the way down. And then there's a negative modifier for grit checks, and that would be the pierce value of the weapon.
Yeah.
Is subtracted from the grit check.
And that'll be different for each weapon, depending on what the weapon is.
Different. So they range from 0, which means no penalty, all the way up to, I think, 5 currently.
I think 5 might be the highest one listed. I mean, and of course, there's ways that you can modify even that.
There are special abilities that do increase the pierce value. To name a few, there's Forced Strike. The Creation Rule allows them to do it as well. Attuned allows you to use your mind, half of your mind, as a pierce value.
Yep.
So there's a couple that boon your pierce into something that's even better, something to consider, especially if you know your unit has it. You obviously want those things to trigger in the game.
Yeah.
So I think that's it.
All right. I think that's it. Yeah, a lot of this is just, it's about thinking about how can I modify my dice to make my chances of getting to that 10 greater. But yeah, that was our little look at dice and all the modifiers for it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Well, guys, that's going to about do it for this episode. But before we get out of here, we have some more for you.
News, 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 news.
All right, for some new releases we got. So we already mentioned this in today's episode, but we have new posse set, the Meat Grinder, coming out with Kyle the Black. I know you're very fond of this one, Brian, just the name. And then we also have last year's show promo, Jadzia on her little, what kind of bike was that again? That was
Tread bike.
A tread bike. So Jadzia on her tread bike is now available in the store as like a regular.
Jadzia, does she have a last name?
Yeah, she does, but I am not saying it. I'm waiting for one of you guys to say it because I know how my tongue wants to say it. Yeah,
Brian, what do you say, Brian?
Brian says it right, I think.
Well, okay, I can get really close when I have like the verbiage in front of me. But it's been a long time since I've actually had to say her name. So I think I'm going to defer to the guy who knows the name of the bridge.
Yeah, but apparently the bridge is pronounced differently than.
Oh yeah, that's true. I did, didn't I? Then I pulled up the actual Polish pronunciation, and it was different than the bridge.
the Kosciuszko Bridge.
See, even hearing you say it, I can't say it. But going back on the Meat Grinder, so that's, like I said, that's Kyle the Black, his new posse set, and that's for the Enlightened. That's Kyle, and then you get a bunch of hands in there. And then Jadzia.
Oh, that's not it. Hey,
what
wait.
else? Oh wait, I forgot. How did I forget him?
The other model in there.
Yeah, I know. So, I'm just so focused on the undead. I forgot.
Right. So there's two reasons people are going to be buying that posse set. The first reason is because it's Kyle the Black, and you get 15 hands in that box set.
Yeah.
But then there's the lawmen. The people who are playing lawmen are going to buy that set solely to get the other face in the box.
Yeah.
And that is Virgil Earp.
New sculpt.
And he's got new pose.
Yeah.
Yeah, new sculpt. It's mainly just a different pose, but it's cool. It looks great.
Yeah, it's a really nice sculpt.
So there are going to be a lot of Kyle the Blacks and menials like up on eBay.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, especially the menials.
So does that give you guys any kind of a pause? So that concerns me a little bit. Does that mean we're going to start seeing doubles of guys start showing up in posse boxes? Because what happens when that Tombstone box comes out? You can't have a Tombstone box without Virgil.
Yes, you can, because there are two other Earp brothers that we do not have models for. So
Okay.
a wife and a brother are going to be in that box. So you have to remember there are other people that are going to label. So you will not see a Virgil in Revenge of the Earps, or was that what it was called? Revenge of Tombstone, or
Has it been announced? I didn't know that it had been announced.
I know Stuart mentioned what he called it. He put it out about what it's called, and the boss in that posse box is not Wyatt.
Huh.
Okay, it's been a while since he's mentioned that, but yeah.
So this Tombstone box is going to be full of Tombstoners, but it's likely not going to be. It won't have Wyatt in it. It's not going to have Doc in it because they already have them, right? In the red oak. And it's not going to have Virgil because he's already in this other box. And it won't be Morgan because Morgan
that's tough.
Already.
So to me, I hear what you're saying. That is a tough thing to swallow for me. So you're telling me now, for me, it doesn't matter. I already have them all. But from a conceptual standpoint, if I want to play a Tombstone posse, now I'm going to have to buy Armored Justice. I'm going to have to buy whatever the new Tombstone box is going to be. I'm going to have to go get Meat Grinder, which I don't give a crap about Enlightened. You know what I mean? To me, that is actually a little concerning to me.
You're assuming that the box can't play on its own. You know what I mean? I mean, because you're going to have, what, 6 models in the box?
No. It's not about it playing on its own. It's about being able to gather all of those kind of iconic characters together. They've now been spread out over a large number of boxes. You're talking about 4 different boxes if you're including the Red Oak set that you have to be if you want to bring these guys together. Because you've got White and Red Oak, you've got Morgan and Armored Justice. Now you've got Virgil and Meat Grinder, which isn't even a lawman posse. That one actually concerns me a little bit.
Well, if you're a lawman fan, you're probably going to be getting those anyway. You know, I know what you're saying though. If you're somebody new coming in, that's an awful lot you have to get if you want those.
Right, exactly. I mean, it doesn't affect me personally, as I already have all those models. But as a new player, if all of a sudden, you know, let's face it, those lawmen from Tombstone are pretty famous. There is some built-in cachet there that makes you want to get those and bring those together. And having them spread out over that many boxes is concerning to me as someone who plays lawmen. Even though I don't need them, if for a new lawman player, that could be very off-putting.
Well, here's a thought. I have some thoughts of stuff like they could do, and like Brian kind of mentions that, you know, for players that want to run that Tombstone list, you know, this posse coming out, more than likely they'll have that keyword, so you can use them. But I'm thinking that one, they could always do an alternative sculpt. So then there may be 2 Wyatts, or Wyatt would be probably the main. If they're going to do an alternative sculpt, it would be of him. And the other idea I had was the secondary market. You know, people are going to see that same problem like you see, and they're going to start splitting these boxes up and selling pieces. That's the thought that I have about that issue.
Right. I'd almost rather see the secondary sculpt.
I think I would too.
I don't like the idea of having to plan for the secondary market, but an alternative sculpt to me would be very appealing.
Yeah, it kind of, I think then it would make people want to get both of those, so they could have the 2 different versions. You know, he's kneeling in his original sculpt. Maybe they'll stand him up.
I still don't have that kneeling sculpt, actually. I only have the standing, hiding behind the shield sculpt.
Okay.
And I got a kneeling in the red box, the Red Oak box, but I chopped mine up.
Brian the Kit Basher.
Yeah, I chopped him up to put him on a bike.
Yeah, it's like I immediately dismembered him.
All right.
Which is kind of cool, because someone did the same with Legendary Wyatt and put him on a Blackhoof.
Oh, Blackhoof, yep.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Well, that's what I did with my old Marcus. I chopped him up.
And put him on an iron.
Put him on an iron horse, yep.
Nice.
But, all right, and then, and that other one we mentioned was Jadzia, and she is the new promo model, like I mentioned, or not, she's the old promo model, but she's now available retail, and she is one of our Lost World Exodus models. So she is Outlaw, and then what was she, or what is she going to be for Lost World, Brian? Do you remember?
The Prussian Imperium.
Imperium, okay, that's right. So just a little bit of a preview type character for Lost
like
World.
One of the specialists of the Ween Tassar tread bike corps.
I've used her once or twice in an Outlaw posse, and she's pretty nasty. So if she's nasty in Wild West, I can only imagine what she's going to be like in Lost World.
Yeah, I had to play against her in a lawman posse, and she tore some stuff apart before I was able to take her out. She really did a lot of damage.
Yeah. So that's cool that she's out now. That if you guys didn't catch her last summer or in the past year at different cons, you can get her, just order her now. And then we move on to the new promo model for this year. We pretty much everybody's seen it by now. It's Theodore Roosevelt. on a dinosaur. And that's also Lost World Exodus.
Well, okay, you got an asterisk on a dinosaur.
On a raptor?
Because it's not actually a dinosaur. It's a neo-evolutionary animal that has very similar characteristics of the dinosaur.
So it's basically...
That's too much to say. Yeah. It's a dinosaur.
It's basically... Brian could have said mutant. Mutant would have been fine, too.
Yes. He's now, from this point forward, going to be known as Dino Teddy.
Dino Teddy.
And, so this is the new show model, and because of the state of all our different conventions now, War Cradle went ahead and made him available at this point through the end of Gen Con, which right now is our only convention that's going to be going right now. But sadly, PAX is November, so that should be still going too. But sadly, he's sold out. He's sold out, I think, in less than a day of Adepticon. You know, that's when he got revealed, was the weekend of Adepticon, which didn't go. So that's why they've made him be continually available, because there's no conventions to get to right now.
Yeah, and either there's a lot of people who want to play Teddy, or they printed 10 of them. I'm thinking a lot of people want to play Teddy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, they printed more than 10, and evidently they put a few. The other day they I guess found some that they hadn't sold, so they up and put more in the store. Like I think a couple of days ago.
It wasn't many.
They're likely all gone now too.
Yeah. I have patience. I mean, it's a cool model. For the factions that I play, he ain't gonna get on the table, because he's Union, and he has agents, so he can play with the lawmen, with the certain posses.
And the Enlightened. And
how is he playing with the Enlightened? What keyword does he have?
Well, the Enlightened has a posse that has the 6th slot, can be any agent.
Oh. Is not the Ghostbusters?
Ghostbusters, yeah.
Who are also all agents.
Yep.
That's true.
So there are 3 posses that currently have
he could possibly go in.
Wow, now he's going to hit your table. You still have that patience?
He might, but you know what? I don't even have that posse, so
I am close to ordering that posse.
Yeah, pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, I have.
I kept being told to hold off until the next Friday. So it's like every Friday,
next Friday,
see if I can find one. Yeah. And then I put it in a cart, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to order this. And then my wife was like, oh, can't you wait till next week?
Man.
Wow. Well, Brian, why don't you make a deal with your wife that when you have no gray plastic left on your table, then you can buy more.
Oh, that'd be a while. I've seen his desk.
No, he paints fast.
And I've seen...
Brian doesn't look too happy.
No, he doesn't.
At all.
Not like that.
The look on his face is like, shut up, Tom.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people painting this model and posting it up.
I'm a fan of the podcast, because she's not going to ever hear that.
But yeah, there's a lot of cool people posting their pictures of Teddy already online, and seeing everybody's take on the feathers of the dino that he's riding is interesting to see, how you paint them. I've seen everything from rainbows to the solid colors. So it's definitely one of those models that you can really paint up in a lot of different ways.
It looks really good for dipping.
That's a big jar or can that you're gonna have to do that in.
Yeah.
One of the neater things is, because of how the lore of the Lost World is basically built on the idea that a terraform incident is occurring. Mm-hmm. So all these creatures are being created at an accelerated rate, right? So they're all just a little bit weird. So as they reveal more and more of these weird creatures that are going to be different from the corrupted creatures we see in Wild West Exodus. So these will be a little bit different. They'll be naturally occurring based on the environment churning the evolutionary, track.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you literally can go anywhere with how this dinosaur looks. Like, we've seen some green scales, but there's no logic to that. It could literally, you could go anywhere with the colors.
Yeah.
So I saw someone use some of those new color shifting paints.
Oh, yeah.
That Vallejo made. And so the scales are all purple, sort of.
Yeah.
Because as you turn the model, then you'll see a little green in it and a little blue, and that's cool, and why wouldn't it? There's a little twist to it. It doesn't have to be.
That reminds me of. Do you remember? God, I think it was it Paul Plunge who had the King Scarab, but he painted it with nail polish.
Yeah,
like color shifting nail polish, and I was like, oh my god, that thing came out looking awesome because of it. Reminds me of that.
And like, did somebody with a painting group see his thing and say, "Ooh, we can do color paints if the pretty nails can do it"? You know what I mean? Is that what triggered them to do it?
Maybe. Who knows?
Using it. Might as well get gamers to buy an actual painting color shift instead of having to get the
nail polish.
Nail polish.
Yeah, that's
because I had never seen it before then.
I didn't either. I thought it was ingenious, and it's so simple. He said he literally didn't do much to it. It's not like he didn't need to do any highlighting because the whole effect was the weird twisting and stuff of the shifting colors, and it just worked. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
definitely was. So I now I'm kind of interested to look into that color shifting paint. Who makes that?
There's quite a bit on the market now.
There's a couple of different brands, but Vallejo makes some now.
Yeah.
So if you're a Vallejo primary user, that's one way to get them. You just get theirs.
All right. Well, in other news, so this is kind of sadder news. Delays. So because of the state of the world and with Corona and everything kind of being in lockdown, a lot of the production plants and factories are shutting down their warehouses and whatnot. So War Cradle actually has delays on. Okay, let's see. So Dystopian Wars is one of the victims of this. Tommy's Bill and Ted is being slowed down
because they delayed it like February. That's when they announced, hey, our plan was to push Dystopian Wars out.
Yeah.
During the Epticon, and that can't happen because some of the production is halted.
Yeah.
And that was in China. So it was like whatever China was helping them produce caused Dystopian Wars to delay until China can get back to work. But then as that virus spread, it then interfered with a bunch of other things War Cradle was trying to work because then War Cradle had to shut down. And so I think they pushed Dystopian Wars is back as far tentatively until the fall.
Yeah.
And
we don't know about the other stuff like the Bill and Ted and Mythos even, I think, is being affected.
So Mythos was, I guess, an odd horse because they have several sets that they had already had production ready.
Yeah.
Right? So with that, they kind of just said, okay, well, we have some on hand. We'll just be shipping them. So that's why we still had stuff this month.
Yeah, there is a pre-order for Mythos.
So I think so because they did the trade box, right? So that was 4 sets. But they only released 2 to the public.
Yeah.
Right.
Then they released one of those trade boxes the month after. And now they're, instead of the other trade box that they didn't release already, they're actually releasing a different set that was ready. So they had stock. So they can just go ahead and ship it out. That's the Path of Horizon.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was released now. and people are receiving it as you listen to this. So they have that other trade box that you can only get through the trade bundle that they haven't released to the public. So I'm pretty sure that that's going to be next month.
Yeah.
Because they already have boxes of it because they had to ship it out with the trade bundle. So
Right.
they'll be able to do that another month of release for
And
those.
I think that's the only thing they've posted up for pre-order, right? I haven't seen anything for, well, Wild West Exodus.
I don't think anything they hoped to be able to.
Yeah.
But I don't think there is anything else. And that's just because they haven't been able to spin any resin. So
yeah. So hopefully, I mean, there's talk with things getting going soon again, or on a limited workforce type thing. We can
right. So as soon as UK relaxes the essential list, right?
Yeah.
So they allow shipping and stuff like that to be part of essential.
Yeah.
So that's why the actual War Cradle warehouse is able to ship things. It's just on the production end, that's not considered. Production of models and toys is not considered essential in the UK. So
I disagree. I disagree with that ruling.
Well, that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for that to unlock, and it only makes sense. They have a limited number of people in the office doing the things that they can do.
Yep.
In the meantime, they have some of their staff able to do stuff at home. So one of the things they are able to do from home is promote the next game to go into beta.
Yes, that's right. So we've just seen that this week.
Right. So just this week, they went ahead and unveiled the next game in the War Cradle Studios lineup. And of course, it's a Spartan license they picked up. And mind you, most of the Spartans had their own fans. And so there are probably hundreds and hundreds of, super fans of this game that are like eagerly anticipating. They told us this is going to be a couple of years, but now it's likely to be next year.
Yeah.
Which is good news, right?
So say the game, since I missed this because I've been working like crazy this week, I've seen nothing.
It's another ship battle game, but it's not set in the dystopian age. It is called Firestorm Armada, and it's a capital warship battle game. And they've been sneaking out, actual sketches of the main fleet over the last couple of days. On the new official
Facebook group. Fan page.
They actually, I guess, contacted the Firestorm Armada had a Facebook group, and they contacted the runner of that group and was like, "Hey, you want to help build the official one?" And of course, that guy was like, what could you say? He said, I think it was probably like, hell yeah. They created the new title. I think it was like Black Storm or something.
Black Storm or Black Space.
Which is, I believe, kind of an homage to the original page, right?
Yeah.
So it was a way of nodding to what came before. The Black Ocean.
Black Ocean, okay.
So they created the Black Ocean Firestorm Armada official Facebook. And
I as soon as I saw that, my local player Chris, who's been on the show, he said that used to be his bread and butter back in the day. So he's been anxiously waiting for War Cradle to do something with this license since they bought up the IPs from Spartan, like Dystopian Wars and Armor Clash and stuff. Because he says he still has, hundreds of these models from when Spartan still had it. And he says one of those games that, he just couldn't get rid of the models because they were so cool. Very much like all the old players that played Dystopian Wars. They all have, still have all their old models. So they're waiting for the games to come out that they can break out these, out of storage and start using them again. So, yeah, I think timing-wise, it was the right time.
Yeah, and you can turn to the group and see people are starting to post their old and share,
all their old
what
pictures.
they had, and it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's exciting to see them doing that a little bit earlier than what, I guess that they planned, but I think that's really cool. All right. We mentioned it before that some of our cons coming up this summer, a lot of them have been canceled. Sadly, Adepticon was canceled. And then just this week, UK Games Expo has kind of been shifting a lot in the last couple of weeks. They postponed it for one date, and then they postponed it again. And I guess the people behind it, looking at logistics and everything, they said that time frame wise, it just was going to be so tight that they to get what they needed in place and stuff, they went ahead and canceled it for this year. So that's another victim of our cons. And the next big show, it would be Gen Con for War Cradle to go to, and that's still kind of up in the air yet. So keep your fingers crossed, I guess, to see that still happen. Hopefully it does. I think it's late enough in the summer with them lifting the stay at home, and just having only essential things open, that maybe they'll still go. I know the city sure needs it in Indianapolis. and I'm sure there's a lot of vendors and different game companies that want that to still happen.
Right.
But we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens with the coming months. It seems like it's a different story every week for our little hobby world. I think that's all we have for news, guys, and for this episode. So we could probably go ahead and close out the show. As always, you guys, if you had any questions, feel free to email us at blackhoofsaloon@gmail.com. You can always find us on the different interwebs like, the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTubes, MySpace, Friendsters. No, not really.
Friendster. I'm like, wait, didn't that die?
I threw that out to see if you guys would catch those.
They're going to start doing TikTok.
Oh, no. I think I would be lost. I probably still have a MySpace thing, but I don't know if you could even log into it. I don't even think it exists anymore either.
I think they do.
But yeah, you guys
probably app.
Yeah, it probably is. Go ahead and check out us at all those places, you guys, and see what we got going on. With that, I guess we're done for this episode, guys. You guys got any last quotes for everybody out there?
Quotes?
Yeah.
No. Quotes. I don't have quotes.
But Tom, you're always good for quotes. They always end up in the outtakes.
My life's not just one big meme.
We'll quote you on that.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. And, we'll talk to you next time. And remember to ride with the sun at your back and always roll those big crits. This is Eric saying, take it easy, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yep. Wear your masks, people. Be socially distant.
Hey. 6 feet.
Thanks for stopping by the Blackhoof Saloon, y'all. We hope you enjoyed your visit. Feel free to get a hold of us with comments or questions via the interwebs and shoot us a telegraph at blackhoofsaloon@gmail.com. You can also find us on the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Music for the podcast was provided for use by Ross Bugden and can be found at one of his YouTube channels, Ross Bugden Music or Ross Bugden Composer. Until your next visit, ride with the sun at your back and always roll those big crits.
should we start with? Should we start with Kyle, who's coming out now? Or do we go with the dirty Union Custer?
Wow, someone's biased. Someone's got a pro Enlightened bias, even though they're scum-sucking pieces of garbage.
Okay,
but,
here,
you know.
I'll rectify that. He does have a nice stash.
He's got the best stash in the game.
Oh my God, he does.
Hey, what about Wyatt?
Well, I think I don't know.
Custer's still better.
Yeah, I think Custer's beats Wyatt.
I don't think Custer has a stash. He's got a mustache and
he's got his
chin fur.
His goatee.
So, yeah, that's all stash. That's all part of stash.
It's not. It gets its own different name.
No.
Oh man.
No. You see Custer sitting there, a little big horn. He's like, "Who wants a mustache ride?"
Yeah.
That's going on the back of the podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, that's going in the back. Holy cow, I gotta write that one down. What's the timestamp on that one? 21 something. Oh man, that was good.
How come everything I say gets cut and put into the end?
Because it's gold.
Really?
Because it's not fit for the regular people. It's for the ones that want to stick around for punishment.
They want to hear what stuff you're going to say that I'm going to cut and put at the end.
Hey, hang around for whatever stupid crap Tom says.
There he goes again.
Oh, man. Man, you know what? I'm looking at Custer's card. He's got some sweet-ass curly hair, too.
He's a beautiful man.
I mean, that almost rivals Wild Bill's luscious locks. He's a beautiful man.
My phone almost died, and then I was like, I'm sitting in front of a computer. I'm like, why don't I just move the headphone plug over there?
Yeah, I noticed it flicker when Brian was talking. It like when we had a blue screen, I was like, "Uh-oh." I don't know if I said that out loud, but I'll hear it if I did.
Yeah, I saw him go silent, and then once his icon became the square second half of my screen, I was like, "Oh, he's plugging into." I thought maybe tablet.
No, if you remember, the tablet doesn't work anymore. For some reason, it just comes up as the weird lines
your
across it.
Adult television.
Exactly.
Squigglies.
But I cleaned up